Hello there and welcome to SME On Point. My name is Liabo Setho. Access to finance is one of the most significant barriers to small business growth, particularly here in South Africa. Although there are over 300 finance institutions in the country, many business owners don't know which one to turn to, particularly for the perfect financing mechanism or structure for their particular business. In other cases, some may seek funding when the business is not even funding ready or necessary. Even still, knowledge on how to navigate the funding is still necessary. Since we've been running masterclasses from the beginning of this month, our live masterclass today is on business funding. Many of you on our social media pages have asked for it. I have invited from the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, SIFA, Mr. Lwandiso Makupula. He's the Executive Manager for Wholesale Lending, and joining us via Zoom is Chief Risk Officer Garth Rossiter, a regular on the show from Lulaland. Gentlemen, thank you very much for making time to speak to us. Funding is obviously the most significant one when it comes to business growth, but what is it that makes people not get funding? Is it because there are significant mistakes that they make on their business plans, or is it because people want free money? Mr. Makupula, let me start with you. Mr. Rossiter, I'll come to you shortly thereafter.
Thanks, Diabo. It's actually both. People are looking for free money, but let's put that away. There are many errors when people are looking for businesses. The business plans are not talking to their businesses. What do I mean by that? You'll get a business plan with good financial projections that are completely out. By completely out, we know how many units you'll be selling. Yeah. We know how many at what price. But when it comes to the projections of many business people, the way off, they're very aggressive. Yeah. I think that's one of the errors. That's a common error, in fact.
Garth, you deal mostly with loans and you give people flexible loans of about 6 months. What is it that would happen for you not to grant me a loan? What fault would you find on my business plan or application?
Well, yeah, I think the key here is it really depends on your business. So what we like to do is look at every business in its individually and assess them on their merits. So obviously, as we've noted, the credit score is really important. And that speaks to a lot of things, because your credit score can really be driven by your previous credit history, how your business or you personally have managed credit and managed to repay advances or loans in the past, and whether you've defaulted on them. So there are really two elements here. We look at the willingness to repay, which is really driven by the credit score, but at the same time, we want to look at your affordability. And that's really what's super important for us, is that we aren't giving funding to a business that won't be able to repay, because that puts them in a very, very difficult position. So we're very careful about that as well. Yeah. And that's really where responsible lending comes in.
Yeah, I've said to Mr. Makupula that most times people who write to us, for instance, here on SME On Point, you get the sense that it is more grants, free funding that they want. Do you find that impacts on you when people come and realize that they need to actually repay you? Do you find that that's the case with you? Garth?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part.
Garth, I was saying to Mr. Makupula that I get the sense that a lot of people, even those who write to us, that they're actually looking for free funding more than a loan. Do you see that in the applications that come through, when people realize that they need to repay so much and then they suddenly abandon the application?
Yeah, I think that is a common. We don't see it as much as we used to. I think people are aware now when they apply for funding, funding isn't free. There's always a cost attached to it, and I think that's really an important part for businesses to understand. So depending on the phase of your business or where your business is, if you're at very early stages and almost a startup stage, then it's very difficult to get debt funding, because funders want to see your affordability, they want to see you've got cash flow in order to service that debt. So I think the free funding stuff, I think people businesses tend to lean more towards government grants, or self-funding, or potentially if it's a great business idea, then you'd lean towards equity investment rather than debt funding.
Right. We did ask our viewers to write to us and get us to ask you questions, particularly Sifa and yourself. And I know that Not Restricted Confectionery Bakery, they've written to us and they have a question for Sifa. Greetings to SME on Point and Lulaland, as well as SIFA and the viewers. A big thank you to the SABC for this masterclass show. My question speaks directly to SIFA's Youth Challenge Fund and its application cycle. I want to know precisely how long does it take to be approved by your board, and after meeting all eligibility criteria. Thank you very much, James, from the Director of Not Restricted Bakery and Confectionery, Mr. Makupula.
The Youth Challenge Fund, Liabo, it's a new initiative on our side, and it's very exciting. There's a huge uptake. I'm happy that people are aware of it. It takes 15 days, and that 15 days, it's 3 weeks. Maybe I must talk about it. We're targeting youth there, and the youth should be startup. If they are not startup, or they could be existing businesses. For startups, we have projects, or we fund up to 2 million, and for existing projects, we fund up to 15 million. There is an element of grant so that the projects that we're funding should be sustainable.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Because we don't have time, I want Garth to answer the next question. We do have another question from a viewer who says that he wants to start a business, a videographing or vlogging business from Mr. Deep Call. He wants to know if he can get funding. Can he approach? He wants to have a presenter. He wants to have cameras and microphones. Should he be looking for funding from SIFA or yourselves as Lulaland? And it doesn't say whether he's got previous or an existing business, or if this is just a business that he's starting. How would you advise him, Garth?
Yeah, I think the key here is for startup businesses, it's more difficult to get debt funding for a startup business. What you'd look at doing in that instance is equity funding possibly, or government grant funding, where you don't have to make repayments, because if you're not getting a cash flow, I think that's the really important thing. If you don't have cash flow, you're not really going to be able to service the debt. So for a debt funder to fund those businesses, we really like to fund businesses where you see where they're looking to grow, where they're looking to improve their cash flow, where they need to cover short-term expenses, but you do tend to need to see a definite cash flow,
right,
or turnover in the business.
Yeah.
So for that, I'd recommend making sure you have a very strong business plan, looking at your budget, your forecast, and ensuring that you can service any debt funding you take into the business, so you don't put pressure on yourself. Right.
I know that we are run out of time, but I know our viewers can go to the SIFA website to be able to see what kind of businesses the SIFA funds, as well as Lulaland, the criteria that is needed. And I'm afraid I really wanted to extend this masterclass so that people get to understand what exactly one looks for. But hopefully we can continue next week with the business masterclass, so people will be able to call in and speak to you and let you know what exactly it is that is needed if they need their businesses to be funded. I am joined by a representative from SIFA, Mr. Lwandile Makupula, as well as Garth Rossiter from Lulaland, and we've been having the masterclass for business funding. After the break, we take a look at the impact of Johannesburg CBD explosion on small businesses. Please do stay with us.